Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Junk Be Gone.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
20 seconds left. BYU no timeouts. They're thrown 20-yard line. Tennessee up by 3. What could go wrong? I tell you, folks, the last 2 weeks, I've looked at our rundowns now that we're 90 minutes, and I've thought, how did we ever cover Tennessee football in 60 minutes? I don't know how we jammed it in. We need 120 with this team. We're going to go do another deep dive into a bizarre loss of a ball game. You think that each one is, well, you'll never see anything worse than that. Hey, something new. Let's get into it. First segment of our show brought to you by our friends at Junk Be Gone. If you got some stuff, some old stuff in the house that you want to throw out, call Junk Be Gone. If you got a few big items that need to go out that are too big for you to lift and carry by yourself, call Junk Be Gone. They've got great guys that come to your house. They'll carry it out for you. They got teams that do that. JunkBeGone.biz is where you can learn more about this fantastic, locally owned, local company, Junk Be Gone. All right, let's welcome in wave one of our panel today. We have from WNML, Josh Ward, VFL, Will Overstreet, from WNML, Jimmy Himes, and down there from the Athletic, I can't say it, David Ubben. All right, top story segment, so let me just throw out some top stories. First of all, I questioned last week, will they play for this guy? They played 3 straight games with no effort. They gave effort, all right? I'm not going to, this may be the only positive thing we do all day, but I will say, and we said it Friday on the radio, if they come out and they don't show effort, I don't know how there's any improvement the rest of the year. Just put the lock on the door, it's done. If they come out and show effort and lose, at least you got something to build on. You may sit there and think, okay, the young guys in November may be better than they're playing in September. The effort thing to me, the energy thing to me, is a slight positive moving forward. Thoughts?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and I think you could see it in the play of Darrell Taylor. As I said, I thought in the first game there were some plays, while he was hustling, he ended up coasting at the very end. Yesterday, you saw him go all out, and he had a much better game, much better as a player. You saw other defenders and guys on the team also playing at that level. So I think overall, from looking at that, it definitely gave you a lot better sign that guys are buying in and said, okay, we messed up this first game. We're going to come back. We are going to put the work on the field. We are going to show up. And they played throughout the game. Darrell Taylor had a couple good pass rushes in the last parts of that game. He got worn out, and they didn't have anybody to come fill in for him, so they couldn't get a great pass rush the entire game. But so I thought that effort was the surprising and the best thing we could see out of this team.
The screw-ups weren't effort-related. Jimmy, I thought it was interesting. It makes you wonder about the Georgia State game. Yesterday during the ESPN broadcast, they said that Jeremy Pruitt told them that the coaches could sense the possible loss coming last week because of the way they prepared. That is 180 degrees opposite what he told the local media, and by that, the local fans last week.
Well, yeah, I asked Jeremy Pruitt after the game against Georgia State, did you think your team was ready to play? And he said, absolutely. Okay. But he told a different story to ESPN, so I'm not sure which one. I kind of believe they weren't ready to play because that's the way it happened against Georgia State. And there were even players themselves saying that Georgia State had more want to than they did. And so the effort against Georgia State was not there as it needed to be, which I blame on the coaches and the players. I don't think either one of them were ready.
Yeah, in some ways, the effort last night is a positive.
Right.
But when you view the Georgia State game through that lens, it now makes that look even worse.
You can still ask, well, why wasn't it there for the season opener after that long offseason? Why did it take another loss to get that there?
Let me ask you this. They also talked about going to the youth movement. We knew that was a possibility this week. Apparently, again, Pruitt likes to talk to the national guys more than he does the local guys, which isn't great for local fans. But he did tell the national guys that, yeah, we're going to the youth movement tonight. He let everybody know, yeah, that's what we're doing. Fine. I don't know that I have an argument with that. But the problem when you do that is miscommunication, misalignments, having to call they had to burn at least 3 timeouts to get the right people on the field at the right time. At one point, Tom Luganbill said that Jeremy Pruitt is beside himself on the sideline. He threw his headset at one point. Derek Ansley was going nuts. Youth movement is all well and good, but you're going to have some growing pains out there. Thoughts, David?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely are. And I think, youth movement aside, ultimately what you have at this point in Tennessee is you have a defensive head coach who specializes in coaching defensive backs, and the biggest error that costs him the game is a problem with a defensive back who is young but makes sort of really an unforgivable error. I don't know how you sort of make that. And you have a guy who's supposed to be covering deeper than the deepest in the third or the other third of the field, and he starts the snap 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's coaching. That's letting guys know. And Pruitt can complain about situational football, but again, it all goes back to the head coach, and that's the kind of errors you get when you go with the youth movement.
And Taylor is young, but he also was a starter all last year. He's a second-year guy. So technically, these are veterans who made the big mistakes on the last play.
And you also saw throughout the game, BYU left points off the board.
Oh, boy.
If their quarterback had been able to hit the broadside of the barn for more plays, they'd had 2 more touchdowns on the board easy.
Or if they'd even bothered to look at tape of Georgia State last week and said, hey, let's try and run on this team. Because they had success in the second half when they started running on them. I'll say this, Jeremy Pruitt's not looking great right now. I would still take him over the guy on the other sideline. BYU, while not impressive, they did leave points on the board, and I don't understand the strategy of outthinking yourself and attacking via the pass when all you had to do is run up the middle on these guys. Your thoughts on the miscommunications, the misadjustment, all the issues that are going on with playing the young guys?
Well, I think you combine the first 2 topics here because playing young guys, if you still end up with issues and you still come out of there without a win, how do the older guys respond as the season goes along? Will the effort continue to be there? A 1-game sample size is not enough to find out will you continue to have that leadership. I don't think anybody's really questioning will Juwan Jennings show up. I think that's going to continue to be the case. But in 2 games, 3 games, we're going to talk about the schedule that's ahead. It doesn't get easier for Tennessee. How do they continue to respond?
I think they missed Daniel Batuli.
Which Bob pointed out last week on the show. Yeah,
sorry, Dave. But there were 3 timeouts that were called because of defensive misalignments in the first 2.5 quarters. And I think if you had Batuli, a veteran out there, you wouldn't have as much of that going on. And he's also a really good tackler. He's been either the leader or among the leaders in tackles the last 2 years. I think he could have settled some of that down a little bit for you.
It'll be interesting to see when he gets back how much of it is settled down. Because at this point, I mean, you've got misalignments all over, as David pointed out, from the secondary to the front. I don't know that unless Batuli's got his head on a swivel and eyes in the back of his head, I don't know if he's going to be able to catch all the misalignments and screw-ups they have. Yeah. I mean, it does make you – this is a defensive – these guys are supposed to be defensive geniuses. You know, you went out and spent another $1 million on a new defensive coordinator, and he's going nuts on the sideline too. At some point, you're going with the young guys, and young guys are going to have issues. But if this was going with the young guys, then explain to me what happened last week with all the misalignments and the miscommunication. It's not just Batuli, you know. So I wonder about the way this coaching staff is getting through to these players. And I can't believe we're saying that because you've got Jeremy Pruitt with his pedigree and Derek Hansen with his pedigree. But when you're looking at it, you got to ask questions.
John, I've talked to coaches who have been at Alabama, and they say that defensive scheme is very complicated, and it takes at least a year or 2 to figure it out. And I know that Pruitt said they were going to be simple. I don't think it is simple. I think it's more complicated than he's leading people to believe, and I think that's one reason for the mix-ups.
I definitely don't think it's simple because the blitzes they run, you can tell, I mean, Pruitt is a defensive X and O guy, like at a pro level, designs great blitzes and plays that are unusual and a lot of people don't know about and don't do. But that also takes into place that guys got to know where they're supposed to be on those blitzes, and they're complicated. So the coverages have to be complicated on those things as well.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about it, but I think when you're thinking of assignments, you're thinking of, okay, I got to do this, I got to do this. If he does this, I have to do this. If he does this, I have to do this. And you're not just playing football. You're not doing the thing that made you a 4 and a 5-star. Just playing football. And not to belabor the point we were making earlier, but just 20 seconds left, no timeouts. Yeah. Don't be 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. Like these are the things that I think when you overthink things and you're trying to, my assignment is this or this, you forget to just play football. And last night, when the game kind of turned on them a little bit, Tennessee's defense didn't look like a bunch of guys playing football. It looked like a bunch of guys trying to not lose a game. And when you do that, you end up losing games.
But you guys taking a math class.
Well,
taking a math class.
And especially that's where you're going to get the problems. When you have a complicated defense, emotion is where things have to change, and that's where you see guys make mistakes. Some of those busted plays were the wide receiver motion and people not checking over and communicating.
What's this team going to do once you face a sophisticated offense? And no offense to BYU, but Tennessee I don't think has seen a sophisticated passing offense yet.
No.
What happens when you're facing stacked receivers? That's basic stuff. Yeah. But do you trust this bunch at this point to handle stack receivers, to handle motion. The other thing I thought was interesting, there were times last night where BYU used tempo. And I thought you may be seeing more of that this year, because if you got a defense that can't line up correctly, hey, let's go tempo. Because they're going to burn through their timeouts the first quarter unless they pick it up quick. Any concerns then? And we'll talk about this throughout the show with different groups, but the youth movement, you're taking your lumps now, figuring you'll be better in the future. Is there any reason to say, wait a second, we're taking too many lumps now, let's go back and mix in a few veterans? I mean, he's in a catch-22.
Yeah, because I agree with what Josh says. If you go with this youth movement and you're losing, what are the veterans thinking?
Well, if you're going to do this youth movement, what you got to do is you got to come back to this. Listen, guys, if you get confused, call cover 2. And you just say, cover 2, play ball. We did that in the pros. Team was moving around, had a lot of motions. Coach said, if you try to adjust more than once, it's cover 2, go play ball. Go make a play.
Of course, the last play was a simple cover 3, and Taylor played it like a man-to-man. So.
Well,
all right, and we're going to talk about a lot. If you're thinking we haven't mentioned Jarrett Garantano yet, we will. We've got a lot more to come. Next up, we bring in a couple more panelists, and we're going to talk about the line of scrimmage. Okay, I lied. There may be a couple of bright spots out of that game yesterday, so some steps in the right direction, but it ain't fixed yet. Coming back on the Sports Source, we'll discuss the line of scrimmage. Much more to come over the next 90 minutes.
Hey, when you're away from home, catch us on Facebook Live, our YouTube channel, or on SportsSource.tv.
Let's do it.
This is the Sports Source.